Hi, so for my disability, I had the congenital right upper extremity amputation. So my right hand was in a fist and then wrapped with an ACE bandage for the 48 hours. The first question, what did you learn from this experience and how will it help you to be a better clinician? I think that this experience allowed me to see not only the physical but the psychosocial effects of having a disability, and I think that this is beneficial to making someone a better clinician because it makes you really have more empathy towards people that do have disabilities, and it allows you to see like how the disability actually affects you, which makes your understanding of it a lot deeper than if you were to just think about the things that it might affect. Like when you're actually living with it, you see firsthand how it actually affects your life. The ADL and IADL process throughout my 48 hours and how that differs from my baseline, those were the hardest things for me to do. The ADLs and IADLs I really struggled with, and it was impacted extremely by not having any use of my right hand. It took me about twice as long to do any ADL or IADL, and I had to ask for a lot of help, which was kind of annoying, I feel like. But for someone that actually has a disability, like this is their everyday life. Like people have to help them. I struggled a lot in the morning with my morning routine. Getting dressed, I couldn't do any types of clasps or buttons or zippers by myself, so I would have to ask for help. Trying to do my makeup just left-handed was definitely also a struggle. It took a lot of extra time, and I had to be like very slow and precise because I'm not left-handed. So because it wasn't my dominant hand, it was even harder. The next question is, what was the most challenging for you during the 48 hours, and how will that help you emphasize with future clients? Again, my biggest challenge was being independent. I found that with just using my left hand, I was completely unable to do a lot of things that I do on a daily basis. And getting ready was the hardest part. And it really opened my eyes to how hard it must be for someone like who has this disability to actually get up in the morning and go and get ready to go do things. And I feel like that shows maybe why people who could have this disability might not want to get up and leave the house in the morning, and they might want to stay home. They might not want to go out because they feel like they're not looking their best because they're not able to look their best by themselves. And you don't always want to ask people for help. Like when I was doing it, the one day I was like, I'm not putting makeup on, like I'm just going to class just like this because I don't have the time or the patience to sit here and try to do it. And also in the future, like emphasizing as a clinician, I think that it really encourages you to try to find ways that make it easier so that your patients don't have to go through like what we just went through and not being able to get ourselves ready in the morning. The question, do you feel this assignment is controversial? I said that I felt that it was a little controversial. On our community outing, we were at McDonald's and they were starting to mop the floor. And the lady that was doing it told us that she was gonna just mop like the other half of the room because we were sitting right there. So we were like, okay, like, thank you. And then she had went and told her manager, and we overheard her telling her manager that she was going to mop the floor in the opposite direction because one of the girls over there was injured. And she was talking about Jessica, who was wearing the neck brace and had the cane. And so I feel like we kind of like giggled and laughed because like she actually thought Jessica was injured when she wasn't. But especially in the community, I feel like some people might look at that or like look at us pretending to have a disability as like almost disrespectful, or like people are going out of their way to like help us when like really we're like faking that we need help. So I feel like that makes it a little bit controversial, but I feel like especially on the college campus, like most people knew what we were doing and why we were doing it, so that wasn't as bad as like being in the community and having people go out of their way to help us when like really we didn't need it. We just needed it because we were assuming the disability. For my meal, I chose to make chicken parm. using breaded chicken and then spaghetti with red sauce. And I planned a meal that's something that we like and we always eat in our household, because even when you have a disability, you're still going to want to eat the things that you like. So it's not always going to be about what's easiest to make. Shopping for the ingredients was the easiest part for me. I didn't really have that much trouble pushing the cart with one hand or putting things into the cart with one hand. That wasn't a big deal. It was actually making the meal that was very difficult for me. So to start breading the chicken, I couldn't crack an egg with one hand, and then to stir the egg, it was really hard for me to use a regular fork because I'm not left-handed. So to hold a fork in my left hand and do that movement, I used the adapted fork with the bigger handle because it was easier to hold on to. And then I was able to pretty easily like take a piece of chicken, dip it in the egg, and then dip it in the breadcrumbs and put it on the pan. I could start the oven. I could put the pan in the oven, but then when we made the spaghetti, I couldn't lift the pan once it had water in it because it was too heavy for me. I could put the spaghetti in it and I could stir it, but then when I was trying to check if it was done, I wasn't able to use the spoon to like pick up a piece and then take it off with my hands, and I couldn't just stick my fingers in the hot boiling water, so I wasn't really able to test it. And then when we went to strain the spaghetti, again, it would have been really unsafe for me because it was so hot and the pan was so heavy. I couldn't strain it by myself. I had to have my helper help me. And then to open the jar of spaghetti sauce to put on it, I used the non-slip pad so that I could just use my left hand and the jar wasn't like sliding all over the counter, so I was able to do that with the use of some adaptive equipment. And then eating the meal, I couldn't cut the chicken with just my left hand. I couldn't hold two utensils, and so I had to have help with that. And it was kind of hard to twirl the spaghetti like onto my fork, but overall eating it wasn't as hard as I expected it to be, so that was kind of a positive thing. And then the theory that our group was assigned was occupational adaptation, and in the group video we all agreed that it easily related to the assignment because there were many things that we needed to like change or adapt in order to be able to do things with our disability. I was assigned neurodevelopmental theory for my other theory, and then I just said that I think occupational adaptation relates a little bit more to the disability that I had, but that obviously the neurodevelopmental part still relates because it's all about motor patterns and motor function. And so if my right arm is amputated, it's even more important that my left arm has good motor function. And if my left arm would have had better function, especially in my hand, I think that things would have been a lot easier for me to do if it was like I was left hand dominant at that point and not right hand dominant and not being able to use my dominant hand. And then my suggestions for the future, the only suggestion that I would have is to possibly, in addition to the meal, have students like complete another ADL while assuming the disability, and then like document how that went and what adaptations they had to make, because like I said, that was one of the hardest things for me, is just completing ADLs like bathing, grooming, that sort of thing. So I think it would be beneficial to look at another IADL, ADL, and see how the disability affects them. Thanks.